All right there, everyone. Tommy Robinson has been freed from prison in an absolute victory for nationalist populist movements around the world. That's what we'll be talking about on today's video. It's been reported that Tommy Robinson has indeed been freed on bail after winning his challenge against a contempt of court finding that had originally sentenced him to 13 months in prison. A higher court has granted Tommy the right to appeal his conviction that was handed down at Leeds Crown Court back in May. Now, briefly, just in case you actually have been living under a rock for the last few months, Tommy Robinson is an English conservative activist, nationalist populist. He's the founder of the English Defense League, huge YouTube, social media personality. He's a young man, a family man, very, very well-spoken. Tommy was arrested a couple of months back in late May outside a courthouse in Leeds when he filmed members of an Islamic gang that were on trial for running a child grooming racket. And he filmed them entering into a court for trial, basically saying, this is what the UK has come to. It's become a cesspool of this migrant-based crime and lawlessness because of the UK's ridiculous open border policies and the like. And so he was arrested for what authorities called breach of the peace, and he was found guilty of contempt of court because he had been warned not to film outside courthouses previously, and he was sentenced to 13 months in prison with no trial, no due process, no appeal, nothing. And then the judge who handed down the sentence turned around and without any explanation slapped a reporting ban on the entire incident, which is generally reserved only for cases of espionage and national security in the UK. And to make matters even worse, Tommy Robinson's lawyer sounded the alarm that Tommy would be put into the same prison population as Muslim gang members who would very possibly kill him. So, needless to say, this was an extremely distressing situation. But as of today, it has, at least for the time being, been resolved fully in Tommy's favor, and the 13-month jail sentence has been officially revoked. Now, I don't think there really is any question here that this is a victory for populism and nationalist sentiments around the world. Remember, just after Tommy was arrested, we did a video where we argued that this was only going to fuel and ignite the worldwide populist movement. This arrest and imprisonment wasn't going to intimidate, it wasn't going to silence or bully populist opposition to some submissive retreat. Now, this ridiculously obvious kangaroo court that sentenced him to 13 months in prison without any real trial, without any real due process, was only going to inflame and ignite the populist movement, and not just in England and the UK, but indeed all over the world. And this is because of what we called the Network Society. The Network Society is a name that's been given to a new social order that has arisen in the past couple of decades, and in fact, it bypasses the old bureaucratic institutional structures that used to serve as the mediators of communication and replaces them now with a mass network of immediate digital information. This is why the ban on reporting decreed by this judge was such an idiotic joke. It was painfully and pathetically inadequate. There was no way the jailing of Tommy Robinson was going to be hidden from the Network Society. I mean, this judge who handed down the reporting ban, this judge probably doesn't even know how to send out an email or has never even heard of YouTube. No, given the fact that we now live in the age of the Network Society, there was simply no possible way that an age-old reporting ban was going to be of any use here. And so we argued that with the sharing of information on the Network Society and social media, Tommy's arrest was just going to serve to awaken a populist giant throughout the UK and indeed throughout the world. And that is precisely what we saw. We saw mass rallies in support of Tommy Robinson all over Britain and indeed all over the world, in Australia, in France, here in the United States, and even in Israel, in Tel Aviv, outside of the British embassy. And so, of course, Of course, authorities had to eventually lift the reporting ban. I mean, they just looked absolutely ridiculous. Nothing was being banned. In fact, British authorities were worried last night. I was reading, it was being reported they were worried last night about the civil unrest that could occur today if Tommy's request for appeal had been denied by the court. That's kind of funny if you think about it. I thought we were all just supposed to forget about this, right? I thought this was all supposed to take place in secret. Well, I guess that didn't work, did it? And then, as if the surge in all these rallies and social networking weren't bad enough for the authorities involved, we reported a few weeks back on an official from the Trump administration actually putting pressure on UK officials to release Tommy. It was Sam Brownback, who's the U.S. ambassador for international religious freedom. He formally complained to the British ambassador at Washington, D.C. about the treatment of Tommy. And it was a meeting that took place in Washington back in June. And Brownback was reported to have said that, if this issue with Tommy was not resolved in a fair and equitable manner by British officials, then the United States may have to publicly condemn Britain's treatment of him. I mean, this is incredible. Do you actually think that any president or ambassador or member of parliament would have given Tommy the time of day if it weren't for this mass surge in nationalist populist activism? I mean, this goes way beyond anything I thought possible here. You see, what's so amazing with the nationalist populist movements around the world today is that now we actually have presidents and prime ministers and parliaments that represent us. See, this is what makes a new conservative age rising so exciting, right? We actually have presidents and prime ministers and members of parliament who find themselves far more in solidarity with us and our worldview than they do with globalists in Brussels or in the UK. Now, when we speak, when we march, when we demonstrate, when we light up social media, now they take notice. And we're finding that these presidents and prime ministers and members of parliament are absolutely willing and indeed eager to stand up for those of us who stand for nationalist, populist, and traditionalist visions of life. We saw this almost immediately with Gerard Batten, the UKIP member of the European Parliament for London. Literally within hours of Tommy's imprisonment, he threatened to mount an official prosecution of the House Secretary if Tommy had been injured or killed in prison, holding the Home Secretary personally responsible for his well-being. And when you put all of this together, the populist sentiments thriving through demonstrations and appeals, the network society publicizing nonstop the arrest and imprisonment and developments surrounding it, and in turn uniting nationalist and populist movements around the globe. And then the pressure brought to bear on UK officials by members of parliament and Trump officials. My friends, I have a very difficult time believing that none of this affected the decision today to quash the contempt of court sentence that Tommy received in that kangaroo court in Leeds. This was an absolute victory for the nationalist populist world rising all around us. So needless to say, this isn't over. I mean, Tommy still has to go through the process of appeals. But given that he's already served time in prison, and given the political pressure from the worldwide populist backlash, I think he'll be all right. But make no mistake, this was indeed a fantastic victory. A 13-month jail sentence for a major voice in worldwide nationalist populism has just been overturned. That's not an easy feat. And already the globalist media is absolutely stewing over it. I mean, they're writing articles about how upset they are that Tommy Robinson has been effectively turned into a right-wing martyr. Remember, you're only allowed to have left-wing martyrs, right? There's no such thing as a right-wing martyr, right? They're extremists. They're bigots. They're racist. Remember, this is a huge defeat for the corporatist globalist media. They did everything they could to squelch the surge in populist sentiment surrounding Tommy, calling all of us the extreme right, far right, neo-Nazis and the like. Man, I tell you, they are not happy today, that's for sure. But that's okay. We'll celebrate for them. Needless to say, everyone who's gotten involved in this through activism and advocacy and marches and, of course, prayer has much to be thankful for. We'll certainly be keeping our eyes fixed on how things develop here. But for now, a huge congratulations to Tommy and to all those involved in the legal proceedings and getting him out of prison and reuniting him with his family, his wife, and his children. And of course, a huge well done to all those who stood up for him in the face of globalist pressures to remain silent. Sorry, it's too late. A nationalist populist age rising will not and cannot be silenced any longer. As always, please like, comment, and subscribe. Click on our Patreon link below. Become a monthly supporter of this channel and help us to continue to analyze current events in light of conservative trends so that you can personally and professionally flourish. God bless.